How's it? I'm Honan,
I'm Oliver.
and today we are doing our review of episode 1/2 of Queendom,
It's
I guess.
round one. Round
Yeah,
one
yeah,
review.
round 1 of Queendom, yes. Because last time we did our thoughts on kind of the intro performance videos that they did, which we called like episode 0. But
Yeah.
this time I have finally seen all the performances. I do believe Oliver had seen them before me for a little
hmm
bit of time. But yeah, now that I've seen them all, it's very interesting what my ranking list has become because I don't think if I before seeing the performances saw this ranking list, I would thought I'm high. This can't be right. Like this isn't my
Mm,
ranking system of these groups or whatever, but it's
yeah.
interesting.
So mine, I was part of the online audience, the online evaluators. So we saw the five performances, the original performances,
Hmm.
then, and I'll talk about that a bit more later. Like what the differences were between because there were some differences between the ones that we saw and the ones that were aired. Um, and then we didn't see the Luna performance. So the Luna performance was new to me when I watched the episode two. So I had to kind of reevaluate my initial ranking. Obviously, I made my votes, and the ones I voted for, wouldn't have changed, but my overall ranking did change.
Hmm.
But yeah, I guess let's do what we did with episode zero and just go through them group by group, talk about each one, and then we can talk about our rankings at the end.
Yeah, do you think maybe we could do order? Well, if we do order of performance the way we saw them, that will almost be kind of like going straight down the list, which is fine. I think the first one we all saw on the episode itself was Hyolin.
No, it's Viviz.
Oh wait, yeah, I'm crazy. Yeah, it was Viviz. Maybe I forget that Viviz performed because all right, I think you guys might have an idea of my ranking of my list already. So yes, we should start with Viviz then. Um, so I will go ahead and say when we talk about which group that we're talking about where their ranking is on my list, and you can do the same for yours as well. So on my
Okay.
list, out of the 6 performances, I have Viviz in fifth, and that's just kind of like. And when I first saw their performance, I did think it was good and I enjoyed it. But then as I saw all the other performances, that kind of changed my view on it.
Mm,
And I feel like it was song choice that did this for me. I love the song Time for the Moon Knight, but it was like the not the best song I feel like to start a competition with
mm,
because it's a little too like calm. And when I feel like a first round of a competition is something where you're like, here I am, kind of like this is us, and then the switch to rough is when I actually really enjoy it. When the full
yeah.
orchestra comes out, that part is very entertaining. I wish kind of the whole performance had been something more like that versus the first half being so calming and kind of very pretty and stuff, and it was unique in its own way. But once it switched to rough is when I was like, okay, this is something really cool to get behind. But because rough is it's very catchy with that kind, that felt more like a competition performance. The latter half of it did, but the first half kind of took me out of it.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I think if they had done like a very small intro thing with the tiara crown with Time for the Moon Knight, perhaps that could have worked, and then made the main focus of the performance the orchestral version of Rough. I think that would have
Mm,
been fine.
yeah.
Um, but I think yeah, like you say, the main enjoyable part was when the orchestra came in with the intro to Rough, and it had that like yeah that hit in a way that Time for the Moon Knight doesn't hit.
Yeah.
Um, and then but it just didn't have enough time to you didn't have enough time to enjoy it before it was over because they kind of split it half and half. Um, and I think they it kind of counted or relied almost on like that nostalgia of hey, remember these G Friend classics?
Mm-hmm.
Aren't they great? And people, fans of G Friend or not, might will listen and go, yeah, these are great, good classic K-pop songs, but I'm watching half of G Friend perform it, and it doesn't have the same oomph as watching all of G Friend do it. Like it's without Yuju there, the vocals aren't as strong.
Yeah,
You know, we
the
just
high note parts that Yuju would do and stuff.
yeah, and like without just without all six of them there, the choreography doesn't have the same hit. Like, you know, the ending part where like they turn like this and they all walk out, like that looks really cool with six people, but with three it's kind of late. It doesn't have that same gravitas. And I feel like they were kind of banking on going, hey, remember G Friend, more than they were saying, hey, we're Viviz and this is what we're about now, which worked in terms of getting the live audience on side, but I don't think it worked in terms of appealing either to the other groups or to the majority of the international fan base who was watching, which I think is why they were ranked lower by the other groups a lot of the time, and why there's been criticism of them overall. But I have to admit, when I saw it, when I watched it for the evaluation, I was kind of swept up in the G Friend nostalgia.
Well, and those songs are so good too. Like, especially Rough is just like that like, if you don't enjoy that part, it's super catchy. I mean, it's just like,
especially, and the orchestra effect was really nice on it.
Yeah.
Like, good decision.
That I kind of agree with the thing about, like, that performance didn't feel like Viviz. It felt like half of G Friend. Like,
Yeah.
And that was the thing, was like, okay, you're here to establish yourself as this new group, as Viviz, but I'm not, like, seeing anything that is Viviz. I'm seeing two G Friend songs being performed. It felt kind of like if a group has members that have left and then they're having to take over for that space, you know, like,
yeah,
that's kind of what the performance felt like.
Yeah, it's like you can kind of draw some parallels, I guess, to AOA on Queendom season 1, where it's like they had members leave, and including most prominently in Choa, and although Choa had left a while before Queendom 1 aired, Mina had just left. And they made a thing of like, oh, you know, it used to be 7 and then 6 and now it's 5. But it still was like the same group, and it still felt like that group. It wasn't a rebrand, it wasn't a different name. And then it wasn't so stark of having only half. I think when you have just 3 members in a group, it's like, it felt like watching a performance from a group that had been like struck with hiatuses or people who were sick, and you're left missing the other members. Whereas with AOA on Queendom 1, I wasn't left missing the other members in the same way, you know. So yeah, but like I say, initially I was swept up in the hype, and then I initially ranked them 3rd in my initial rankings, and then I think after having evaluated closer, I put them down to 5th.
So we have the same ranking for them right now then. I also put them in 5th. That's, yeah, and the members that they are missing being someone really important vocally like Yuju, but also I feel like their leader was someone who was so visually striking and tall in their performances and stuff too, just the presence, you know, kind of. I feel like it's just Yeren is the other one that's gone, right? Yeah. So it is noticeable because the 3 that are gone are very noticeably, you know, like in their original songs, you know.
Yeah.
I'm hoping in the next round they do a Viviz song and they really kill it. Just doing kind of what they're trying to be now. Versus
next round will be the cover round. So
that's right. So
they'll be doing a WJSN song,
but which they totally can pull off that vibe.
Oh yeah, for sure. So it'd be interesting to see what their how they'll handle doing a rap, because none of them are rappers. G-Friend never had an out and out rapper. And of course WJSN has a very prominent rapper, so that will be an interesting. How will they deal with that? I don't know. We'll have to see. But
I feel like Simbi looks like she can rap.
She's got, she looks like a rapper. I know. I know.
It's the vibe.
Yeah, so I guess we'll have to see. Maybe they'll even have a feature or something, which would be really cool, incidentally. Because I mean, like, 'cause, there's no rule against that, right? Like, Park Bom had Cheetah feature when she was doing an Idol song. She was like, "I ain't about to go out there and rap. I can't rap, but I know someone who can." Like, and
Yeah,
that which was
what
cool.
friends do they have in the industry that they could pull out that would be
Well,
really cool?
I'm thinking of their label mates, in particular, because they have Bo. Who is like an extremely prominent rapper right now in Korea. Like he was huge on Show Me the Money last year. I actually erroneously said that he won, but he didn't. um, but yeah, he's had two number ones since being on from the songs on the show. So I think like he could be someone that they could bring out to do a rap verse. And
It would be cool if they brought out
cool
like
verse.
an established rapper, but I also really want to see like
Oh,
Cindy
it'd be
rap
cool
if
as
she's
well,
the
yeah.
one who does it.
Yeah,
I feel like I've really enjoyed what Cindy's played into the show. Like she kind of knows like, all right, someone's gonna be like a villain in this episode or something. I'm just gonna like go for it all out. You can tell she's doing it in a very joking manner. Of course, there's probably some people who will actually get upset about things or whatever.
Oh yeah.
There always
is. There are.
Yeah, it's like it's like obviously she knows the members of WJSN well, but I'm sure there was still like the idea of like, oh, why are you talking to them like that or something,
And there's been all kinds of dumb stuff being said online. It's making me sad to see, but yeah. So I'm not sure what else there is to say about Viviz. I think the one thing I'm kind of also apprehensive about them is when it comes to the fan choice round. Presumably, the fans are going to want to see another G-Friend song, and I worry that we'll have the same issue in them doing it. And I know that it hasn't just been for this show either. Like they did a performance at a baseball game recently, I think, and they performed Bop Bop, and they also performed Navalera. And it's like cool that these songs are still clearly they're considered now like part of their catalog and stuff, and it's cool that they're not being left to just be forgotten and never performed again. But I do think that it's something that will continue to hurt them unless they really change up the way that they arrange it and do it in a very different way.
Well, and the problem kind of is they don't have enough music as Viviz yet to really do that.
Right, but they haven't done Bop Bop yet, so they can still do that, obviously. So and then they'll release a new song as the final round. So they actually only have to think about one more song of their own for their current catalog for this show. So it's not too much of a problem.
Yeah,
but we'll have to see how they deal with it. But I think this will certainly. I mean, Shinbi herself said in the episode, like, this is kind of been like a wake up call. She's like, I know how it works now.
Yeah,
like,
she was like doing the whole thing like, all right, we're do this to us now. Well, it kind of lit a fire under them.
Yeah.
So I am excited to see what they do. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like they're so talented that they'll do something amazing. I just don't feel like we'll go through the whole thing like, well, they never really showed us anything. I feel like they're too talented.
There's no questioning their ability. Especially as dancers, like their performance was it was all the same, like very clean, crisp, synchronized choreography that we've come to expect.
Yeah, that's the problem with their choreography. So synchronized, you don't notice it as much unless there's more, like members.
Yeah.
Like when there was 6 of them and it's so moving quick like that. When it's 3, like you were saying, and they have that special like tick of a clock at the end, it just doesn't have the impact.
We've talked about this before. Like, there's just less you can do on a stage with 3 people than you can with a lot of people. But I also noted that their stage was the only one in which there wasn't like an issue. There wasn't a mistake or something went wrong. Like, their stage was like completely clean and well executed. It just didn't have that same impact. Or it was
That's
just
the thing about live performance though. It can go absolutely perfect, but energy and like there's so many other important aspects to what makes something enjoyable than just being flawlessly executed or whatever.
Yeah,
I guess
for sure.
next was Hyolin,
Mm-hmm.
which was my first place. God, is it still? Like I'm contemplating in my own head. Like Hyolin, just I mean, when we originally talked about okay, solo members, should there be solo members? There should if it's Hyolin. It's
Right.
like if it's her, then it can. Like um I don't even know where to start with hers except for like just before she even went on stage, the outfit you knew like something was happening. But the whole like intro of hers, I feel like was one of the better intros of all those
Mm.
performances where you felt it felt grandiose before it
Yeah,
started.
it had that grandeur that you want from a show like Queendom. You want to have that kind of pomp. You don't want it to be low key. It's like it should be a big, grand stage, and it certainly had that vibe. I mean, I have to admit, when I because when I saw them live, I didn't know what the songs were going to be. Whereas in the show, there had been the preamble of like her deciding on the song and showing
Yeah.
her working on it and stuff, so it wasn't a surprise. But when I watched to evaluate, I had absolutely no idea. So I was fully ready. Like, so Viviz had shocked me because I was fully expecting them to do Bop Bop. I wasn't expecting G Friend songs.
Hmm.
And then Hyolin shocked me even more because I definitely wasn't expecting Sister
A
songs.
solo performance to touch my body.
Yeah, which is one of my favorite Sister songs at
Hmm.
that. Um, so it was like I fully was like like, oh my god, I can't believe she's doing this. Like that, this is crazy, and I absolutely loved it. Thought it was thought it was great. I think the one thing I thought was a shame, but a very small shame to have missed out was that she didn't include the rap part. She went straight into the like, but she was probably time constrained
She
and
didn't do
whatnot. But
Bora's part, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
so because Hyolyn is a really good rapper as well, and it's cool. It would have been probably one of the ultimate like statements of intent if she had come out and done like strong dance with a rap and then
And the
those like
singing, it seemed
vocals as
she
well.
focused
Like
on doing kind of like more showing vocals towards the end
yeah,
and dancing around. It seemed like the the impact though. I think the impact of her performance and like how energetic it was what made it harsher on Viviz being right before that.
mm,
Like Viviz had what they did right before that, and you thought at first I thought, okay, wow, they killed it, and then Hyolyn performed it. I was like, oh shit, like when it's kind of like that when you see a opening act and you're like, okay, that was really good, and then you're kind of wondering, and then the headliner just comes out and slaps you in the face like instantaneously.
yeah.
That's what it kind of felt like to me.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, certainly the running order didn't do Vivers any favors
Hmm.
because Hyolyn's would have been a great opener or a
Yeah.
great closer, right? But it going immediately second puts first and third in a real tricky spot. Um, so yeah, I just it's hard to find any flaws with what she did really, and I think it certainly was like it was a showcase more than anything, and people have criticized that it's like she um the kind of singing that she did for it, like after the dance break section, it was just kind of her ad-libbing over the backing track, which is kind of what happens in the original song anyway.
Yeah.
But maybe they wanted to hear her
Well, they just
fully
want to.
sing it all, but you know,
Was she just gonna repeat the chorus over and over again at the end for you rather than ad libbing anything or something?
I
I mean, what's the critique there? You just want to hear the
yeah,
melody of the chorus repeated
and
every.
also like it's a solo rendition of a group song. She can't do all the
Yeah.
parts.
I don't
Like
understand that critique because the end then would just be her kind of endlessly like touch my body, without any variation kind of on
yeah.
it.
And also I noted that she had it wasn't the original Sistar recording. Like she had re-recorded the whole song, so the backing track was all her.
Hmm.
It didn't have any of the other members' voices in there, which I thought was a nice touch because made it hers, you know. Um, yeah, I watched it and I was just, and every time when I saw it the second time, when I saw it the third time, when I saw it the fourth time, I was still just like, yeah, I mean, it's freaking Hyolin, man. Like, there's not much that she can't do. The minor drawback was that she didn't rap in it, but like, whatever, you know, that's really not the end of the world. And it was hard to find fault with that stage, even if her the heel on her shoe came off.
She's so professional that I had no idea, you know, like
Yeah,
until she said something in the episode afterwards where she was like, "Oh, the heel was supposed to." It's like it was, it was messed up because you could have fooled me,
yeah.
like
Score
no
one for
idea.
Gorilla Glue. Yeah, there's honestly not that much to say about it because I was just so enthralled by it. And it's definitely a statement of intent, and I think everyone was putting respect on her name from the intro episode,
Yeah,
but I think here she really proved why people have that much respect and fear of what she's capable of. But I know what I'm left with is like, we talked about this already, but like, how the hell is she gonna do a Luna song by herself? Like, what?
if anyone
How
can do it,
how is she gonna do it?
it's
Yeah, but
like
I'm very curious because you know, if you try and sing a group song by yourself, it's constant and you have no room to breathe or stop or rest.
Luna's tricky because they do a lot of overlapping.
Mm.
Like, you know what I mean? Sometimes even if there's groups, they actually have their parts separated before the next vocalist comes in or something. But you notice in Luna songs that next vocalist will overlap the ending of the other vocalist part all the time. And
And you'll have like back and forth, like one person will be doing a part and then another person will come in and then like, yeah, it's
God, could you imagine if she got like the other members of Sistar to do a cover round for Luna?
It'd be cool.
Hyolin's one of those people I don't know. She might just drop some shit like that on you, you know, like cause
like I said before that it's definitely not out of the world that the other members, or at least one of the other members or whatever, could come and do something. But I think that now she's done Touch My Body and she's done it by herself. Like, I think the chance is lower. Maybe it depends on what the fan choice round will be. Yeah. Well, I saw that all four of them were together at Soyu's concert like the other day. So maybe she was like, "Hey guys, I've got an idea. If you're busy next Monday. Like, I got something you can come do." So I don't know, maybe, but we'll have to see. But yeah, the Luna one I'm very curious about because.
And she went out of her way to choose Luna, so she definitely had an idea in her mind of what she wants to do, to go out of her way to be like, all right, I'm picking Luna for the cover round. I think maybe she has a song in her head of theirs where she feels like she can totally change the style of it around or something. You know, maybe she goes for a complete different version of something they have.
I mean, it has to be. She has to change it a lot in order to make it doable. It's like I said, presuming she's doing a group song, and because I feel like it would be a bit of a cop out if she just did like a solo.
God, dude, please do Heart Attack by you. I need to see Hyolin do the cutest, most adorable. Like, just could you imagine Hyolin doing Heart Attack? Oh my god.
So yeah, well, that's probably the one I'm like, I have the most maybe the second most anticipation for, just because I think it could go wrong. I think it could leave people feeling like, there's something missing here.
I feel like the cover round is the one most susceptible to where like some of the performances really don't hit, just because it's like when you go out of your comfort zone that much, and then sometimes you go too far, you know, trying to make it interesting.
And it was certainly pretty divisive in Queendom 1, right? Like there's some of the covers that are part of like those all-time like Queendom stages of like some of the greatest ones that you'll see, and they even mentioned
performance.
Well, Lovely's one was the one that was really highly criticized, right? Their Sixth Sense cover was like, people really didn't didn't like it.
Which I thought the G
I thought it
Idol
was
one
fine.
was the worst one. The
Yeah, so that's the
fire.
thing. So yeah, so the Idol had such a strong round one, and then people didn't like the fire cover. People didn't really like Park Bom's hand cover. But in contrast, people thought that Mamamoo's Good Luck cover was kind of meh as well, or the way that they chose to approach that, and like because they did like the 4 separate styles, and then when they came together, it was good, but the 4 intros were less good. But in contrast to that, Oh My Girl's Destiny and AOA's Egotistic were both considered like really, really good, and they are. They're great, great stages. So there's some things that you can do where, especially in the case of Oh My Girl's Destiny, like they made people not even think about the original anymore. It was like suddenly it was like Destiny was Oh My Girl's song,
Yeah. It's like now, like Oh My Girl showed how good they were through Queendom and everything, but like now, if you told me Oh My Girl's covering someone's song, I have such respect for them. I'd be like, oh yeah, they'll kill it and make it completely their own, because now there's like a level of respect for them there that wasn't quite there yet when they were doing Queendom. Whereas I feel like in the cover round, Luna's really gonna have to show up and wow everyone, because that's kind of their chance to take back what they didn't get to do in the first round.
Yeah, definitely. Like it's going to be a make or break for them, really, because they're at such a disadvantage after the first one. But we'll talk about Luna.
Yeah. We should. I forgot. We should say our rankings of Hyolin before we.
Hyolin. Okay, so for me, she was first. She was first when I voted, and she's still first now.
I know. I had her at first, and I rewatched all the performances before we started this, and there's probably like a biasness playing into my list right now that is unfair, but I have Hyolin at second right now. Wow. And we will know what my first is as we continue through the list. It's hard for me not to put Hyolin in first because I do feel like out of everyone, she established I'm here the best. Like out of everyone performing, like this is me. Like this is a competition. Like she showed up and like established that I think the best out of everyone. There's definitely a bit of biasness in the song that is my number one on the list right now and the group that did it. But I won't lie, there's a bit of biasness playing into the list as I rewatched all the performances.
It's hard to not have bias for a show like this.
Yeah. So now we have to talk about Kepler, right?
Yeah. Third up is Kepler. So, do you want to go first?
Yes, I'll go first. So okay. I will say, before the show, we all know that I did not have like the highest esteem regard for Kepler, because I had a lot of saltiness about some of the members that didn't get chosen and blah blah blah, all that stuff. And Wadada is not my favorite song of theirs. It's MSVK is the one I really like, right? I believe that's the title.
Mask.
Yeah. You say mask. The bass line and everything, that to me that is like their best song. But I must say Kepler impressed me a lot because I went in with very low expectations and I feel like they went way higher than my expectations of them. And their performance to me, I don't know if it's because of youthful energy or something, but they brought a lot of energy to their performance, I feel like, and I feel like when they performed at third was really kind of boosted things up, because for me it was the beginning of the episode when they performed.
Yeah, it was the beginning of episode 2,
and I feel like they did some cool stuff, like the flashing to Hikaru walking kind of out of the tunnel to the rest of them on the staircase doing the choreography, then all joining together. The dancing was not like any of the flawless execution that you're getting from Viviz and stuff like that, but I think what you weren't getting from flawless execution, you were getting from kind of hyped energy levels that they had.
Right.
And their live vocals were so much better than I was expecting to them to be. I feel like their live vocals were really solid throughout the whole performance, and there wasn't anything where I could go, oh, that's not hitting very good or anything, like I feel like their live vocals solid all the way through, which is the most you could ask of a rookie group performing in a competition show. When I consider that they're a rookie group, it's a competition show, this was their intro kind of performance to everything, I feel like they killed it.
Okay.
I feel like I'm about to get a very different opinion.
Well, I think it's more about like what emphasis we put on different aspects for how much we enjoy a performance, right? Because I certainly agree with a lot of what you said. Like they brought a lot of energy. That was good to see. It was a great way to start off episode 2. I was also like pleasantly surprised by the commitment to the live singing, because I was thinking that it was going to be a very like, very heavy, like 50-50 performance at best vocally, but just because that's kind of how I was thinking they were going to do like a lot of energetic dancing and consequently wouldn't be singing live as much, not least that they don't have that strong a vocal line. But I was reminded of when people were watching Girls Planet, people were saying like, it seems like there's so much more focus now on dance rather than vocals. People like there's when like Bora and Jiyun and so on were being eliminated, everyone was going, clearly no one's prioritizing vocalists in their rankings. Everyone is more interested in dancers. So I was hoping to see a really strong dance performance from them, and that's kind of how I was viewing them, as one of the stronger dancing groups in the show. And there were so many instances where people were out of time, either someone going too fast, someone going too slow, or both at the same time. It made it hard to enjoy watching, because it looked, apart from some sections which were very clean, especially the dance break, it was like it just kind of looked like a mess. It looked like there were, because you would see 3 people who were in sync with each other, and then another group of people who were in a different time, and someone else who's in a completely different. And it's just like, I'm watching it and I'm like, I want to enjoy the whole picture of a choreography, and I'm not getting that. So while I didn't by any means not enjoy the performance, but it made it hard to fully enjoy, primarily because of that reason, but also just because I'm not a huge fan of While I Die as a song. I don't like it.
That was the hardest part for me, was the song is not nearly my favorite.
Yeah. And I liked the arrangement of it. I thought the remix they had done of it, I thought was cool. I thought it added to what they were trying to do. Like I said, I didn't hate it, but I didn't like it either. And I also thought there was some questionable choices. Like you mentioned when they panned over to Hikaru by herself in the tunnel. Hikaru, I think is a really, really talented person. I think she's a really good dancer. I think she's pretty good as a rapper too. But like they isolate her to show this. If a member is going to be shown individually like that in a group performance, she needs to be doing something crazy. She needs to be really popping off, and she just kind of did like a sort of meh kind of bit.
She did not she didn't do anything like crazy with the choreography. I will agree with that when they did the solo shot. I think what made it at least interesting was because the other performances beforehand that I had seen had not really separated the shots like that. Sure. So that was kind of like, okay, here we're getting something different happening.
Right, but I feel like they need to justify that choice. I don't feel like they did. Like the section with the. I'll say that I don't think anyone particularly made good use of the stairs. I don't know, they had these stairs on the stage, and it's like a lot of groups tried to use them for different reasons, and none of them really did anything particularly. Like, I mean, what can you really do with it at the end of the day? I don't know, but they had that whole section with the flags, and I just thought that was kind of lame. I don't really. I
will say when they had the whole group kind of do the dance breakdown. They had the whole group kind of do the dance breakdown. I will say that didn't really hit me very much because there was nothing crazy to it or whatever.
Yeah,
it felt drill team like, I guess, or something, like if a drill team has a dance part, but there was nothing in the choreography in that section where I went, oh, like surprised or anything,
Yeah,
like when
and
that
like
happened.
yeah, you could. It talked in the show about how much they'd been practicing for that particular like that dance break with like the rolls and stuff, and it was just like it felt over rehearsed almost, that they were just going through the motions rather than showing the emotions, as it were. And it just, yeah, I think given the circumstances, I like for the it was probably like one of the best ways they could have shown that song um out of what their options were. I guess. I mean, maybe that's not true. I think there's probably way better ways they could have done it, but I don't think it was bad at all. But I still put it last. So
So you gave them last place.
yeah, so something. I mean, something has to be last. So, and for me, when I watched them to begin with, like I said, I didn't hate it, but I was especially just the lack of synchronization and stuff. It was a bit too much for me to overlook. So
So you know
then
me,
they went.
and like I've never been like the highest like opinion of Kepler through stuff, but I don't know. I think because of how energetic the performance felt, and then also because the song seemed to suit a competition well, especially when it
Mm,
happened. The song's style seemed to be very good for like, all right, we're competing against that energy of like what da, and they're all kind of the stuttering and tempo of it felt like it worked really good for competing. And
yeah.
so I think that's why, for me, I give them third place out of that
Okay.
everything that happened. And I just think like because well, when we get to the others, I'll talk about why as well. Because when I think of all the performances, there's all the way through didn't have anything like Viviz, and when we talk about Brave Girls, I'll explain as well where I got taken completely out of the performance.
Right.
So there's consistently had energy that kept me in the performance where I was like, okay. And I think also going in with low expectations and them exceeding them has me giving them a much higher ranking. I think if they were a group I had very high expectations of and they gave that performance, maybe I wouldn't give them as high of a ranking. But I am kind
Mm,
of giving them a you're a rookie group. I had very low expectations going in, but you exceeded them. I'm giving them a higher ranking kind of based off of
yeah.
that.
And I have to admit, like the bar for me was low to begin with, but I mean, but I don't. I think perhaps I think we talked about this before. I think after having watched Girls Planet, I feel like I have more of a critical eye when I look at Kepler than I do for the other groups, just because I haven't seen the other groups in that environment.
Yeah.
Like having watched those girls practice in the way that they do and perform those different kinds of stages, and having seen them, make mistakes and have issues and stuff, it and just be criticized. I mean, the whole point of Girls Planet was them being criticized consistently throughout, right? So I naturally will look at them through that kind of lens. I think that does play into my assessment of them. I'm perhaps harsher with them than I am with the others. Um, but I do have a higher expectation of them now because I know that they are capable of delivering really good performances. Like I say, it was not a bad performance. It's just something has to be in sixth place.
Yeah. They
um,
they haven't performed nearly as much as the other groups, so it's interesting to
yeah,
see if they get really really comfortable doing
yeah,
these performances.
I think doing the cover round will be really good for them because it's a chance for them to express something they haven't expressed before. It's a chance for them, which could be a risk. It could be like showing something out of your comfort zone. You're not
Yeah,
used to it, but
them doing Brave Girls is what I'm worried about because I'm worried. Brave Girls has a vibe that I don't get at all from Kepler.
right.
Like, so they need to really. I guess they need to Keplerify. Like, if you were to say a Brave
The
Girls
song
song,
choice is
like,
really really important
yeah,
because they cannot pick a Brave Girls song like High Heels or Deepened or Rollin' and do it with their youth. Those songs are mature, sexy songs, confident, grown woman songs. They're not youthful teenage girl bright songs, and it won't work to try and force Kepler's energy onto that kind of song, even if you do change the arrangement or whatever. But Brave Girls do have, summery songs, bright songs, cool songs that I feel like Kepler absolutely can do, and they have to pick a good one.
Yeah,
they can really screw themselves if they go for it, especially if they go for one of the more popular songs. But
especially if they go for anything sexy, I just don't feel like that's not a vibe I'm gonna get from Kepler.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it's going to be really important to choose the right song. But if they choose the right song, then I think they have a really good chance to do something cool and refreshing and put their own spin on things, which is something they haven't had a chance to do. And I think it will also play to a lot of their strengths from having done Girls Planet, where they had to prepare completely different songs week by week and completely change something and learn something new and prepare it themselves. This will be playing to those strengths. So I think they can have a really strong round 2.
Yeah, I agree that they can kill it. Vocally, that's Brave Girls going to be very interesting for them because there's some high notes.
Some high notes, yeah.
I'm trying to think who is going to do that in Kepler. Like,
it has to be Shaken.
Yeah, and right? That's putting a lot on someone's shoulders. Like, you're the one who's going to do all these really difficult parts, and it's all on you to nail it.
An interesting thing, I suppose, as well with doing Brave Girls is that obviously it's half the members, or even fewer than half the members. So you can how they're going to divvy up the parts will be an interesting thing to look at, and you can certainly take for Min Young's parts, for example, you can have one of the stronger vocalists do one part, and then one of the other stronger vocalists do a different part, and make it a bit easier when you only have to get one part ready rather than multiple parts.
One thing they can do, I suppose, is add strength in a weaker area of Brave Girls, which is the dancing. Yeah. They can add a little more complexity to the dancing than there is in Brave Girls' original choreography, obviously.
Yeah, for sure.
Which could make things more interesting.
I think that they're probably the best poised to reimagine a Brave Girls song in a way that will be refreshing and original.
Yeah.
Probably outside of maybe Hyolin and Luna, because I have no idea how that is going to work. It's probably the most interesting potential.
Yeah, I do agree. I agree with most of your objective points about their performance, but I think, like I said, the energy made me feel different about it. I think a big reason of me putting them third is their performance made me hopeful and feel a little better about the future of what they're going to do in the show. Whereas if they had just a dumpster fire of a performance or something, then it'd be like, oh no, or something, But they were good enough where I was like, okay, I'm actually looking forward to what Kepler's going to do in the show.
I mean, I still hold that opinion, and I still thought it was 6th place. So I suppose that's a positive, right?
I suppose, yeah. I'm giving them third. I like their energy. That's what I'm giving them third off of. So now we have to do. It was Brave Girls, right?
Brave Girls.
Yes. Yes, it was, because now I'm confused because I rewatched the performances not in the order that I watched them in the episode. Okay. So that's what's confusing me. But yes, Brave Girls. See, this is the opposite situation. This is where I had very, very high bar of expectation, and then that expectation not quite being met. Whereas I do think vocally they were still very good, which as they should be, because they are Brave Girls, and I thought they did a good job vocally. But where they lost me was where Kepler got me, which was energy levels were not as high, I would say. And then, I don't know, maybe the most low budget transition I've ever experienced in my life of song to another song. In a competition performance, you want everything to feel grandiose and very over the kind of top, I guess, sometimes. And then was like, oh, okay, we're in rolling now.
Right.
Was how I felt. And when I talked earlier about being taken out of a performance, a switch to rolling is something that should have me like, God, yeah, rolling is here, like the whole like thing, like. But that's not what happened. I kind of because I think also because I do like let me get the title right, Chimat Baram better as a
Nailed it.
song. They started with the song I like more than the one they switched into, which
Mm.
also is something that can be interesting of why I felt that way.
Yeah, so I certainly agree that the transition both on the stage and like musically was kind of weird because they just had those dudes like run across. Um,
Like curtains, and then it was
yeah,
switching to rolling, and I was like, "Oh, we are in rolling."
yeah, it was very abrupt. But I wasn't mad about the like the way that it kicked in or anything, and it kind of felt like it was like a festival kind of vibe, which I think it
Mm.
was a little bit detached. I think that is probably my main criticism of it is that especially those two songs, the Chimat Baram and the new version as it's called of Rollin', those songs both have such a strong summery like festival party vibe that to do it with these like sexy dance breaks and individual member moments and stuff felt kind of detached from what it was about. And like I thinking back to when they've done those songs at award shows and stuff, it was like just them partying on stage, and that's kind of how I would have wanted to have seen it done here as well. Like you could have, I feel like you could have done the same kind of stage that, like set design wise, that Hyolin did, for example. She did like a jungle paradise theme, but you could do like a summer party theme, summer beach
Absolutely, yeah.
theme.
They could have
Uh,
really themed the
just
stage
go
out
all
to
just
it.
go all in on it like that because that's what the whole vibe, especially for Chimat Panam, that was the whole vibe of that was meant is about a summer being summer queens. Like that's the point. Um, and while I didn't hate the individual parts at all, like I thought, especially Min Young's drummer section at the start, I thought was really cool. It was kind of like, what's the fit? What's the connection of this to the rest of it? You know.
Yeah.
Um, and as much as I enjoyed watching those songs because I enjoy those songs, and Brave Girls are, well, they don't have the youthful energy because they're older women, and you could tell that they weren't quite at 100%, like having just recovered from COVID and having
Yeah.
just had Min Young come back from hiatus and whatnot, that they weren't fully at full strength. Um, they are still captivating to watch on stage, especially Yu Jung. Like it's the way that Yu Jung enjoys herself on stage, just like the sheer amount of fun she has is infectious, and it's hard not to enjoy watching her, especially. Um, but yeah, just those. While I didn't. Each one of those individual segments was cool. I was just kind of like, okay, but if this had led into like the jazzy, sophisticated performance of We Ride that they did for an award show, for example, I would have been like, okay, I can see how this fits more. But to just go into Chimat Param and have fun on stage like they always do, it's like, why have that intro? Why have that dance break? Which initially was going to be done with umbrellas, and they changed it to the neon poles, and it was kind of
Yeah.
just like,
The thing is, both
yeah,
those songs are really good in their merit to be done on their own without
mm,
switching, halfway to the other one. Like, I feel like Chimabaram could have been done on its own, and Rolling could have been done completely on its own,
yeah,
as songs of theirs. Especially Rolling, I feel like deserved so much more
yeah. And I
done
get
for
what
it.
I get why they didn't want to do that, and they said themselves like everyone's going to think we're just going to do roll in. But Angie made the point. It's like, well, even though we don't want to be thought of as just like the like rolling one hit wonders and so on, like it is a signature song round,
Yeah.
and whether we like it or not, rolling is our signature song, and we should do it. And I know that they wanted to do it so when it came in, it would be like a surprise, and it was, and it certainly perhaps made it hit harder. And but you saw on the episode how everyone reacted. Like every group had most of their members up on their feet, dancing, and like you didn't have that reaction with the other song. No matter the other song, everyone was enjoying it, but it wasn't the same. But when Rolling came in, people were losing their shit, and it was like, if you had built the whole performance around this, maybe you could have done like an intro, like a little part, maybe like a brief medley or something, and have people going, oh, are they doing this song? Oh no, they're doing a bit of this song, like, you know, lull people into not knowing what's happening, and then hit them with Rolling. Like, that would have been maybe a better way to do it.
It deserved dedication purely to it. Like Rolling, I felt like it didn't feel like it should be something where guys run across with like those blinds and then you change over to Rolling, you know, like that's what kind of took me out of it. Is like, oh, okay, this is how Rolling's gonna happen. Like, you know, just it wasn't as epic as I needed it to be for what it was changing to. And I feel like also because Rolling had they have the chair choreography, they have all these really cool things that they originally did around Rolling that they really could have emphasized in Queendom that other groups don't have in their catalog. I feel like don't have a Rolling to throw at you.
Yeah, I think
that was my disappointment about it.
If I was being really cutthroat with it, I would have maybe done like a fully, maybe like a military style wand as like a
nod to how it,
you know,
kind of,
which is what they did when they were promoting it. They did like a different uniform wands and stuff like that. So it's been done, and I get that they wanted.
But I don't feel like there's anything wrong with if you've done something really cool, bringing it back.
Especially when it's your signature. You know, it's meant to be your thing, and like Brave Girls, Rolling, military are going to be the inseparable keywords for how we look back on that remarkable group and their story. Like, so I get the choices they made and why they made them, but I don't think it was to their benefit at the end of the day. But what I think we did see is that they are very capable of hanging on a show like Queendom, that they're very capable of doing different things. As you said, like, dancing is not their strongest suit. I think that kind of dancing is not their strongest suit. I think they perhaps are more suited than most groups to doing individual sections.
And to flexing kind of a little more live, natural singing than than the quick kind of dance singing that happens in some of the other songs.
So yeah, I think there's a lot we can look forward to for them, and I would they if they don't cover Mask out of the Kepler songs that they have to choose from, then like I don't know what to think about anything. Like, they have to
Water 2.0.
Like, because like, what are they going to do? Go out and do it over and over and over? Like, there's no way, right? Like, they have to be doing Mask, and that song is perfect for them. Like, they absolutely should knock that out of the park. One thing I will say, when I watched the live evaluations, either it was the rehearsal that we saw, or it was an unedited audio feed or something, because Min Young's voice cracked when we watched it during the Team Up high note, which she has nailed every single time live when they were promoting that song and in award shows and whatnot. And you can tell that she was having just come back from being with a health hiatus, that she was not at her best, and she was still doing a great job vocally regardless. But there was a notable crack, and that affected my initial ranking, which I put them fourth, bearing in mind it was 4 out of 5. So after the show, and I think it's Mnet mastering and auto tuning, or it's not auto tuning, but mastering and editing the vocals, made it so that there was no discernible crack. So it wasn't. I was watching that with my toes clenched, waiting to hear it, and then it didn't come, and I was kind of like, oh,
yeah. So actually, because it looked like, did it look like the same performance to you though? Like...
I can't honestly remember. It looked the same, but I couldn't tell you. I was too busy vibing because Mnet told me to show my reactions very strongly, so I was there, like, in my seat,
Yeah.
But I mean, if it wasn't the same, it was clearly like we saw the rehearsal from just before because it was the same outfits, same camera angles. It felt like, so yeah, I know that made me move them up to third, in my rankings, and I think I'm keeping them as third just because I think that's it's like that's how it should be for something that's in the middle of a ranking of 6, right? It was like there's a lot of stuff I liked, but there's also some things that I would choose differently and would do better. And I think if they had done like as we said, if they had focused entirely on Roland and made like a Roland centered performance, they could easily have been top 2.
Yeah. I have them in fourth because I feel like with both of those songs they could have done so much more if they were done individually on their own. Both the performances, Viviz and Brave Girls, that had switches, the doing the 2-song thing just didn't work this time around for me, which usually I do love a switch when it's done so tastefully or something between 2 really good songs. But I feel like the song choices for doing switching for both groups didn't work the way I wanted it to.
It's worth noting as well that in original Queendom, they didn't do that. They didn't. In the signature song round, none of them chose to do a mashup of 2 songs, or they did different arrangements and they added new things to their songs, like adding dance breaks or whatnot, or intros, but they didn't choose to try and mix 2 songs. And even for groups with a big catalog of like, oh crap, I don't know what song we would possibly choose, there was no like, oh, let's do a mix of both. They settled on one, and I think that was to their credit. I think that was to their strength.
Yeah, because I always remember Mamamoo, and then coming out like, you know, as the da ta 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 and the drums and everything, and you know, da ba dum dum bum ba dum dum da, like it's so epic, you know, from the start.
Their Deco Comedy performance for Queendom, that is a perfect example of how to add something new, add a new intro with each member having their own little flourish moment and whatnot, adding something new with a theme and tying it to the song and having it connected, and like that's how you do it.
Yeah.
Right?
When I think of this round 1 performances comparatively to the original Queendom, no one Mama-mooed me, or you know, like no one had that Mama-moo moment of, oh damn, like you just like slayed everyone in the show or something.
Yeah.
You know, like.
And for me, like Mamamoo and AOA were my top 2 for round 1 of original Queendom, and I don't see none of the performances from this season got to that level.
Yeah.
I think some of them certainly were stronger than the weaker performances from round 1 of season 1, like because Lovelyz and Oh My Girl didn't fully understand the assignment, and Park Bom was a little bit lackluster as well. But I think I think most of the performances kind of fit in between those. I think the bar at the top of Queendom 1 hasn't been reached yet. And considering that Queendom 1 just got better as the show went on, it's like, I'm interested to see if we reach those kinds of heights, and that's what the show itself has chosen to try and set as well, saying like, this is what you can.
It's too hard to compare it to, because Mamamoo Live is just one of those groups that's like, okay, like just off the charts, or just like it's crazy, you know, like the harmonies between those vocals is always just.
Yeah. But the other thing just about the mixing of songs and stuff, I remember you guys when it was the fans' choice. Was it the fans' choice round? Yeah, it must have been, right, where AOA did their subunit song and then Jimin did a solo, and that felt jarring. That those 2 things being together, it was like, well, individual part was fine, but on its own, having the 2 of them together as one performance felt like it didn't work. The connection of the 2 of them, there was no connection between the 2.
It's such a hard thing to pull off. I feel like it's so hard to make 2 songs switching like and you're always switching in the midpoint, where it's so hard to make that connect in a cool
Yeah,
way. You almost have to create a new melody that does connect the two songs for it to usually work and be impactful in the right way.
without taking
And
you completely out.
yeah, and
Yeah,
neither one of them really did that. They kind of just went, here we are
yeah.
in the next
N-
thing, and it's like, okay,
Now we're
that's
at a
kind
new
of
one.
like skipping a track at the midpoint to the next song,
Yeah,
almost
yeah.
kind of
That's
feeling.
exactly what it's like. It's like you have the first chorus and you skip to a different song, and it's like, well, usually the final chorus of a song is the most impactful or enjoyable part.
Yeah.
So we're missing out on that, and then we're going into that part for a different song, but we don't get the same enjoyment factor of
Yeah, we didn't
having
get the lead
built up to
into
it.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So it's. I hope that we won't see more of that in the rounds to come. I really want groups to just to focus on
Well, I
what
do
they
hope
are
I do
good
hope I
at.
get that. I hope I get WJSN the Black doing easy into into
Okay,
into the what was the
if
name of
it,
the trot song?
hump for super yoppers, but
Mm-hmm.
if they okay, if WJSN somehow make a Black and Chokame unit performance work, then I'll be amazed.
Yeah.
I would love to see them. I'd love to see them even attempt it, even if it doesn't work.
From when the show was announced, that was something I wanted to
Yeah,
happen and see. So I really do hope that happens at some point.
yeah, or maybe Luna finding a way to work their units in, because that
Oh
could
yeah.
be a fan's choice option as well.
Shoe
But
starts
anyway,
with heart attack and goes into listen. I've made it very clear how I feel about heart attack. It's one of my favorite songs. All right,
do
so
all 12 solos. Yeah. Well, so last to talk about, well, second to last to talk about is WJSN.
oh, did we say? Yeah, we did say our Brave Girls rankings. I was fourth, and you were third with them. So
Yeah.
yes, WJSN. Okay, for anyone who doesn't know, they are one of my favorites in the competition. So Luna and them are my two going in are two of my favorites. And obviously WJSN's subunit the Easy is one of my favorite K-pop songs in general. So I have a very high regard of WJSN. I love WJSN. So I feel like though I already gave them number 1 for their intro performances in episode 0 because I feel like they were the most unique when they did that. We talked about it with
Yep.
kind of the sundial thing they had going on. And this time around, I really feel like they nailed the intro of their performance, even though I know what happens with the hourglass, but it felt epic as it was starting. There was the fire. There was kind of, is it Ciola her name? The member
Solar,
in
yeah.
Sola? Yeah, like her visuals in that beginning, the fierceness kind of going on were just off the charts to me. And then the song they chose was one I particularly really enjoy, As You Wish. Out of the songs performed and chosen from every group, this was my favorite song in round 1. So that's also something that has to be taken into account. But I also feel like even with the incident that happened, it wasn't noticeable to me
Mm.
because I had no idea until afterwards that the hourglass had broken on the stage and that it was slippery for them. But I feel like just it's probably just the song is so good for me. I don't know, just the way they did a little bit of difference with how the first starts because it doesn't have quite the like electronic MIDI sound going on that there is
Yeah.
in the original
It's
track.
been more EDM this version.
Yeah, I don't know. I maybe it is biasness playing into this, but I really loved their performance still, and I feel like they did what I wanted them to do in the first round.
Yeah. Um. It's yeah. I can't disagree. I think one thing that is I think maybe I should go back and try and find one of the old leaks or something, because I can't remember if the hourglass thing happened for the one that I saw as the online evaluation or not. I honestly can't remember. And that's probably a testament to the fact that it was such a good performance that it didn't matter. Um, and I honestly thought when I watched it, when I watched the episode, I thought it was deliberate, because I
Yeah.
I didn't notice it like falling out, and I thought it might have been like a deliberate metaphor, like, oh, we're not constrained by time or something, like, which would have
Mm-hmm.
been cool. but in hindsight, obviously, like it was a clear mistake. I mean, you know, I noticed it on the stage, and it was like, oh, clearly, it's not supposed to just be in pieces on the ground, like randomly where they're going to be dancing and stuff. And you could see, I think Yeonjung, she slipped a bit. Like she didn't slip, but she like lost her balance a bit when she stepped on some of the sand, which is interesting because you don't think of sand as being a particularly slippery substance.
It is, but when it's on that
when it's
texture of
on
what the
the
floor is, it
yeah.
is, yeah.
So which is unfortunate, but I don't. It didn't affect my ranking of the performance at all. It wasn't like. I mean, I'll say now WJSN was my second choice. They were my second vote. And it's not like, oh, if that had gone perfectly, they would have been number one or anything like that. Like, I still think Hyolin was the one I enjoyed a bit more. I also agree that I love As You Wish, one of my favorite, one of their songs, and definitely they were kind of saying that they didn't feel like they had a signature song, but I think As You Wish is definitely their signature song.
Yeah, definitely.
Not least because of its like yearly number one at the end of the year every time. I thought the way they did it was really good as well. I thought Sola, I thought was fantastic. Like she's always been a really strong performer. She's a great singer, but she was a fantastic performer. I thought
her
dance,
intro
her expressions
really put me in it. Like
really captivated me,
yeah.
right? Like her especially her expressions. I thought she was absolutely great. And I thought they made good use of the space as well. And then they started off with Dayoung and someone else. I forget. I keep forgetting.
Oh,
who
when
the
they
other
go
member
into the
was.
verse and it's them
At the
kind of
top,
walking towards each other. Yeah.
I thought that was a cool use of that.
When I think back on their performance, I feel like they made the best use of the stage
Definitely.
out of all the groups. Yeah, like
I agree with that for sure. The way they ended that stage with all of them together singing that like choral outro, I thought that was really strong because that's such an impactful part of the song and such an impactful way to end that song. They did it in such a good way. It felt like a really good closer of the show, and so it was a really strong like last performance as well. If we obviously won't consider Luna's performance as part of the show of the five.
yeah.
So yeah, in that sense, I thought it was great, and it's a real shame for them mostly, I think, because you could tell that while especially again credit to Sola because her professionalism, like she didn't flinch, and it's such a crazy thing to think about how much professionalism that takes to when you've been rehearsing over and over and over again with a prop like that, and the prop plays such an important part of your performance, and then for it to go wrong at that in the live recording like that, and to not even show that anything was wrong and just to quickly get on and just carry on in your expression to not change at all, I thought was like so impressive. And if anything, it makes you appreciate what they're doing more, because I feel like it would be so easy to think, obviously I'm not an idol, but I would think to myself, if I was in that position, I would be like, I would look at it, like it's impulsive. You see something fall, you look at it like, how do you stay in character like that?
Not to mention when you're dancing and then there's something different about the surface that you've been dancing on, and then you're still doing it, and like, to me, them and Hyolin both, because they had things that went wrong, but they didn't let you know it went wrong in the performance. To me, that's like the highest tier of difficulty where you really show how professional you are, where everything isn't going right, but you're not letting me know that through your performance. Obviously, afterwards, they were very upset. And they were not happy, which is even more amazing because to me, they really nailed their performance and really did something awesome, and they were crying and not happy.
You have that much regret inside,
like...
and you're not showing it. Yeah, exactly. I think the one time that you could tell facially that something was up was Exie looking kind of sheepish when she turned like the empty hourglass. She kind of had that expression of just like, oh, for fuck's sake.
But she still turned it. She's just like, I'm still churning this out.
She still did it, but obviously that one, she knew that didn't have the impact that she was hoping it was going to have.
Yeah,
and I understand, obviously, but I thought they did great. I think going into the show, because they had members out, and we were thinking that the round one was going to only be with 7 because of Unsa having COVID, but obviously, oh no, Zenso was up top with Dying at the start as well. But she obviously grinded and learned it on her own in isolation and was able to join the group
Yeah, she
after.
was not noticeable as a member. Like, oh, I didn't have the same
No, not at all,
time
not at all.
to practice this song than some.
Um, but without Bona and without Dawan, one of their main vocalists, it was like people were thinking, oh, WJSN is not at full capacity here, and they're gonna struggle. I guess that's one of the advantages of having a large number of members is that you can easily cover something like that.
And they still don't have Shen Zhao and
Yeah,
stuff too. Like,
the trend line, of course, yeah. But yeah, it wasn't. Bona and Dawan's absence wasn't really felt, which I think is a testament to how well the other members did. And I think they have so much strength in that group, regardless of the members that they're missing. I think, especially Yeonjung, Yeonjung can never be counted out for how good a singer she is. She announced herself doing Into the New World on Produce 101, belting out Taeyeon's note in that and taking the roof off, and hasn't really looked back. And I think she has that kind of thing in her locker that I think WJSN will have chances to show coming up.
Yeah,
especially because they have arguably more of an advantage in doing a G-Friend song, presumably, than Viviz do, because they have more than the original, and Yeonjung can absolutely, or Subin too, can absolutely do a Yuju or slash Eunha like power note. Like, they can absolutely do the synchronized choreography,
and they can do either style too. They can do the more like Margot G-Friend. They could definitely pull that off, and they could definitely pull off something like Novelera and everything as well. So there's nothing where you're like, oh, could they do that style? They can definitely do either style of G-Friend.
And I think WJSN themselves feel like they're at risk of being overlooked because they don't feel like they have a strong international fandom, which I think is doing Ujung's a bit of discredit, because they certainly do. I think they are perhaps going to be a bit of a dark horse in a way for this show.
I do hope they have the Oh My Girl effects kind of on this.
Yeah. We said before that they're perhaps the ones who are poised most to have that because of the kind of relative stage of their career that they're in, how long they've been about and so on, like, and how they've had success, but not like crazy levels yet. They haven't. It feels like they haven't peaked, but in terms of the length of their career, they should have had more of a peak. So this perhaps could be the opportunity to do that.
I feel if anything, they won people over through having that incident in the performance and doing so well through it than they would have not. You know what I mean? I feel like there's definitely people who probably garnered a respect for, like, okay, they had stuff going wrong, but they just killed their performance still. Like, I feel like that's something people respect a lot. And if anything, anyone watching the show would be like, okay, that was really good that they were able to do that without me noticing that there was like sand on the floor as they're dancing. Like, I would hope that's kind of how people left feeling about it.
Yeah. I had high expectations for WJSN going in, and I think they met and superseded them to begin with. So they certainly are one to watch, and I really hope that I think they will smash. I think they have a really strong chance to do really well in the cover round, because there's a lot. Like I said, they could pick a lot of different songs and they can do a lot of them well. So it's. And if we end up if we get a pantomime stage in round 3, then I can cross that one off my bucket list. Because you mentioned how Easy is one of your all-time favorite K-pop songs, and pantomime is one of mine. So
they have so many more things that we want them to do in the show that I'm excited for. Like, I'm stoked. So my ranking of WJSN in this case is the same as episode 0 ranking. I have them at number 1. So when I say that, I feel like Hyolin and them are like kind of sharing a number 1 spot in my mind. Like, if either one of them, I very respectably feel like could be number 1 from that round. Which, so like Hyolin, in this case, we did see that she got number one, and of course I do not. Yes, yeah, I understand. But if
Yeah.
WJSN had, I would have felt very good about that as well, because I feel
Yeah,
like they were
me
in
too.
that same space of competing for that spot.
Yeah, they were my top two. They were the ones I gave the votes to, and I think my personal rankings were very close to the overall rankings from the online evaluation. So I wasn't mad at all about the order of the two of them. Yeah, I couldn't really complain. I think the only issue I actually had with the rankings as a whole was the placing of Brave Girls, because I thought they were hard done by for that. But I do think that it's quite possible that people in the live audience and the other groups will have heard the voice crack and voted based on that.
Yeah, it was possible.
Just like we did for the online evaluation, like that's quite possibly what people would have heard, and that's how on the one hand, I like that Mnet didn't focus in on that and make a big deal of it, because you know that in survival shows and whatnot, when someone's voice is cracked, they will play it over and over and over again and make it.
When there was a mistake in Girls Planet, you had to see it like 10 times before.
Yeah,
it was like...
yeah, and it's the same in Produce, same in Idol School. It's always been that way. The Queendom is not about that. It's not a survival show in the same way. It's like it's a competition, and it's meant to show them groups at their best.
Yes.
And I think, out of credit to Minyoung, who was performing not in the best of shape, to kind of brush that one under the covers, as it were, I think is doing her a service, and is a nice thing to do for her. But then to not explain that that's the reason perhaps why a lot of groups why the other groups didn't rank them highly, or thought they were less good, and why the on-site and online evaluations were lower, it might explain that. And in Mnet not choosing to show that to us might confuse the viewers of just the episode who didn't know that happened.
For sure.
But
yeah.
And ultimately, I don't know what people's. I only know what I saw and heard in the online evaluation. I don't know what the live. I imagine that has to be what the live audience heard, because I can't.
Well, yeah, live they can't do any. They can't edit anything live.
Yeah.
It's
right. So if it wasn't a rehearsal that we saw, and that was the original, that was the performance that we saw, then that has to have been what they heard, and that also has to have been what the other groups heard too. So that's kind of how I'm thinking about that, and I still haven't fully come up with a. I would love it if Mnet could at least have just like show us the vocals as they were tastefully, and not make a big deal out of it, and just be like, man, this sucks. Because Minyoung's attitude would have just been, well, that's fucking unfortunate, because I was smashing the hell out of that every time I was doing it when I was in good physical shape, and right now I'm not, and that happened, and it happens.
And anyone who's ever like tried singing sick knows, like, it's unavoidable when your throat's not at the best from being sick. Like, it's just unavoidable to have a bad like mistake every now and then when you're singing in that health. Like,
so I just hope that in the future rounds that like we won't have someone mysteriously placing really low and not having a real clear explanation for why, and then it being something like that. But
there is an asterisk, sorry to what I just said. Freddie Mercury was the only one who could pull that.
Yeah. So it's like, it's kind of shady Mnet, but on the other hand, I do understand it, and I get that it's trying to do something nice. But yeah, I know it's a bit of a tricky issue, that one. But
I'm glad it wasn't focused on. Because then that's all I probably would have thought about, or something, when ranking them.
Especially because it was such a big part of that performance, that note in Jimavaram, like.
Because now when I thought about the performance, I'm not thinking about a mistake so much as I am just the actual performance itself, and how I felt about what they did with the songs.
Yeah, and it's like there is such a difference between a prop breaking, or an outfit malfunction, or Brave Girls
and a voice cracking,
forgetting to get their mics from the dancers, and a voice crack at such a pivotal point in a song. Like, it's a huge difference. But yes, we're just that I get it. So I was, while I understand why Brave Girls were ranked low, if that's the reason, I think that has to have been the main reason. And for the rest of it, I can't really fault any of the other the rankings or anything. Which brings us on to the show's sixth place by default, as it were, in Luna.
So unfortunately, the default sixth place is my sixth place, and I love Luna. Luna was my favorite going into this, and they still are my favorite going into the rest of the episodes. From what I want to see from them, and from how talented and incredible I think they are, which is kind of why I have to give Luna a big like parentheses in that sixth place, because it's not like they had COVID, all of them pretty much, right? And then
all of them.
And then that performance, you could tell they just were not perfectly themselves.
Yeah.
Like, and that it was something. I'm glad Taeyeon, you saw Taeyeon use Taeyeon power, where she's like, what do you say we let Luna still perform anyways? No one's going to be like, well, no, to Taeyeon or something.
But
like,
I don't think that if anyone would be like, actually, no, and then they would have been like, okay, we won't then. I like that they made it Taeyeon's thing, but yeah.
Maybe too, because I feel like Paint the Town is one of those songs in a competition they could have gone so much more on the scale with it, because it's got the right sound and the right pacing to it to be really epic in a competition show, and there wasn't anything different enough about it from the original Paint the Town that made me feel like they really impactful to it.
So obviously it's worth pointing out that they didn't do it on the same stage as everyone else.
Yes.
Like the set they did it on was the M Countdown stage. It's not the separate building that the rest of the show was filmed at. Obviously, it was filmed at a different time and with a different audience and whatnot. So, and it didn't have the hype or the introduction or anything like that. It was much smaller scale, and obviously that's not what Luna themselves would have planned. Sure. I imagine because from what I understand, they had started preparing the round one performance and everything. Then they had the COVID, they had to stop, they couldn't attend the recording, and then they had the opportunity to record it after their quarantine had finished. So they had to kind of spend that week in isolation each, and then all come back together and re-rehearse. And Mnet probably said to them, look, you guys can do your performance, but you have to do it here, and you won't have access to this stage, so you might have to change your choreography accordingly.
Yeah.
And that I imagine is what happened. Personally, I love the arrangement. I'm a huge sucker for traditional style performances and things like that. I thought the Kukak style was really cool. There was a lot of like neat ways they implemented different aspects of it, the traditional instruments, just the dancing, like the costumes and stuff were all really faithful historically, which I thought was really cool. They had like that pansori vocalization at one part. I was half expecting Anyeon was gonna fucking come out and start singing with them or something.
So a big problem with their performance for me was not their fault, but the audio quality of it was just not anywhere near as good as the rest of the performances. So like the voice mixing and levels with the music itself was very off.
It sounded like an episode of M Countdown. It clearly didn't have the same budget and the same focus and stuff behind it, which again it's really unfortunate. And it's people like to claim that it's some kind of like bias against Luna or whatever. It's not. It's just really unfortunate.
Yeah, it was just very unfortunate timing of everything that happened.
But
that occurred.
I think in spite of that, Luna showed absolutely why they're such a threat and why like they can and will only get better. And I still, like I say, I still really like the performance, and it's just I'm left feeling like, oh, this is lackluster, not because I thought it was a lackluster performance, but because I know that they had something bigger than that in store. And they
that's how I feel, because I like Paint the Town as a song a lot, and I know if they hadn't got COVID and they were able to do what they wanted to do, I know they would have been in like my top 2 spots. Without a doubt, I know they would have been there if they were healthy and allowed to do what they were going to. There's no way they wouldn't have, with Paint the Town especially, there's no way they wouldn't have been in top 2 for me. So that's why when I look at this ranking now, it's like I feel like I'm in an alternate dimension or something, you know. But I do have to be fair in that, just because that you could tell that they were not 100% in that performance.
Yeah.
Which is hard to give it a good ranking when you know that.
Yeah. So, yeah, for me, I put them fourth.
Okay.
So I slotted them into fourth place.
I could put them higher than Viviz, but objectively, I'm because I do think even after Luna's, Viviz was my least favorite performance. I do think, but that's just because Paint the Town to me is I enjoy that more, you know.
Yeah.
So I can't argue with it.
I'm fully just sucked in by how much I enjoyed the arrangement of the song in that way. So yeah, but I think the other thing is, and that they had, like, again, some of this is partly because of just their limitations and whatnot. They had like these kind of like mostly kind of just like arbitrary like effects on the screen behind them that didn't really have much. They started off with that really cool like temple and stuff, which looked really dope and was fitting. Then it kind of just turned into like lunar stuff, like a moon and whatever, and it was kind of like, nah. But like Chu's part in the bridge, they like it looked like it was going into hyperspace. It like warped behind her, and that looked really cool. But it was kind of just like this is lacking compared to what we'd seen before. Again, it's not necessarily their fault, but they each have these, or not. The issue is they don't each have these moments where they're showing off what they're capable of. Instead, I feel like there are members within Luna who, rightly so, because they have great stage presence and they show so much, and they have such good ability. Particularly the three who I always end up noticing so much in performances like this is Heejin, Eve, and Chu. Because Chu seems to always have like that killing note, and Eve had that fucking flip shit that she was doing. Oh, and Olivia Hay as well. And Heejin basically feels like the center. She seems to always be the center. It's like I felt like I didn't see like Go On or Vivi really in that performance, and it's like obviously it's hard. You have to make space for all 12 members, and when they don't have parts in the song, they're not going to be on stage to have them at those moments. But I really hope that over the course of the show, each member will have a chance to do something impressive and show off because they're all so capable. Like and we know that because they all have a solo, and everyone except Yojin has units that they can show. They have shown how good they are and what they can do. So it's like, I want to see everyone at their best, and yeah.
That'll be the hardest part for me watching Luna, is that I have such clear favorites and biases in the group and stuff. You know, like Olivia Hye and Chu are like my two, like my bias and bias wrecker in the group, and then there's like I do know all the other members now, but like Heejin, like you're saying, is someone you just always notice in their performances, which I think is just impossible not to. There's not really anyone that looks like Heejin, so it's like, how are you not gonna notice her? Right, not to mention she's always kind of doing, I would say, kind of something like of a fierce part in their songs that you notice a lot of the time. Olivia Hye always kind of does that fierce section too, which always makes you really gravitate.
Yeah, Olivia had a very clear like dance break section in this performance that was very notable. And the thing is, and they're so good. They're such good performers that you have to use them. Like you want to use them. But I hope that we won't see everyone, the other girls, kind of sidelined, especially Vivi and Go On, throughout the competition as a result of that. And I hope that's true for Kepler and for WJSN as well. That like the members who don't have as much going on, they don't have as many prominent parts, that they will have chances to do more.
Bahi didn't get enough screen time. I'm sorry. I'll stop. I just remember that was the first article I saw after like episode 0 aired or something. And I just remember thinking like, what? I felt like they did kind of show Kepler pretty well in that episode, but
yeah. But it's like, and it's kind of something that has happened, I think, with with groups before, and it can be kind of hard to avoid.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's examples of how it's done in balance really well. Like if you think back to Lovely's cameo stage, for example, and most of Lovely's stages, there is no one member who takes so much focus. I mean, your eyes might be drawn to different members. Like, you know, it's hard to ignore Miju on stage because of her presence, right? But like, and like Kei or Sujong will have prominent vocal parts, but they feel like a unit, and every member, it doesn't feel like one member is shunned really. Even though like Jisoo or GA might have fewer parts, when they are on stage, they are still a focus, and they have good amount of time. And especially in Cameo, it felt, with that whole like musical theater performance, it felt like every member had their own part and they were really strong and had those moments. Whereas with Oh My Girl, for instance, it's like Yua, Mimi, Hyojung, and Seunghee, for different reasons, for dancing, rapping, and singing, tend to be very dominant. And Binny kind of follows behind that, and then Jiho and Arin don't have as many prominent parts, and they're certainly striking visually, and they have
that's
parts
until
in their
now, because now
performances.
RN can just be in the corner and it's like hello, and then it's still noticeable.
but they use them visually in those performances regardless. So for example, in Destiny, I think it was after Yua, because Yua wasn't in the full performance, and she had that part, she had the bridge part by herself, and then they cut. I think I can't remember exactly the order it happened in, but there was a moment where they kind of lowered the sheets, and it was just Aaron and Jiho, and they didn't sing or dance or anything. They just looked into the camera, and while the music reached a certain the flute reached a nice little.
I remember what you're talking about.
Yeah, and it was like, and you just kind of, it was so striking, just that that part of that performance sticks out to me, even though neither of those members was singing very much or dancing as prominently as some of the others or whatever. It's like, that's how you can use members who don't have the same number of parts or whatnot. And then it was like, how they used them in Gorilla, for example, it was like they had cool dance parts, like Gio had the intro part and whatnot, but I felt like they fell back to a crutch of using Hyojung and Seunghee so much because of how good they are. And it was such a vocal focused song that it kind of felt like the other members didn't do as much, and that's kind of not what you want to have, right? Like, you really want to have everyone.
Yeah, you don't want every Luna.
In the show, you
don't want every Luna performance we see to be built with the same structure of like, okay, here's Heejin in the beginning. Olivia Hay has this kind of little tougher part in the song of like rap or something, and then here is Chu belting a high note at the end, like a structured the same throughout the whole time.
And it's like those members are definitely the core, and then like Cherry, Jinsol, Hyunjin are kind of like the support around that. But it's just like, and especially Hassel, because Hassel is in that weird spot of having spent so long out, but she's undoubtedly so good. She's a really good singer, and she doesn't have many parts in their songs just because she hasn't even been active for that many parts as it is. And like, she has good, noteworthy parts in Paint the Town and whatnot, but it's like, I really hope they find an opportunity to use her more as well.
With Luna too, just, I don't know, it's just crazy to me. Like, there's Jinsol, and like Kim Lip and stuff, which they just have like off the chart beauties in the group, where it's like,
well,
like where they have a way to be very impactful with all 12 of them, especially like Jinsol and Kim Lip. I don't know how you don't incorporate them a lot more or something as well, because they.
Okay, Kim Lip had the intro part in that with playing the flute.
She did in Paint the Town.
Cool. Yes. She certainly sold that as well. She really looked like she was playing it. Well, she wasn't, obviously, but she sold it well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Jinsol to me is just like one of the most obscenely good-looking people on the planet. So that's what. And not only that, she's a great singer and she can rap. Although she doesn't. Well, she will be the first to argue that she can't rap and doesn't want to rap. She wants to sing instead. But they often make her do rap instead because they're trying to fit everyone into having those parts. Yeah. And it's such a challenge though, because I feel like there must be time constraints, right? And that must say, you have 4 minutes, 5 minutes max, or whatever for this stage. You can't go over that time limit. Otherwise, everyone would want to do like a 6.5 minute performance where they can do everything, right?
Yeah.
That's part of the challenge. So it must be so difficult if you're the arranger of a song, or the stage manager, to try and find a way to get those killing parts, to show each member, to get everything you want to do done when you have that many
And
people.
it's a competition, so you need members like Chu who are going to do a more difficult part. They're the one who's kind of meant to do that part, so you need them in a competition show nailing that part that's more difficult, and showing the broad range of talent and everything, rather than
Yeah.
it is a competition. So rather than thinking about how do we show all 12 of us shining, sometimes they have to think about, well, how do we actually just show the best
We need to show
performance.
the highlights. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really tough. And it's I like I said, I get it. But I hope that over the course of the show we will have, especially when it comes to like the unit rounds, the fan choice rounds, that we'll get a chance to see the others as well, because it's especially because that's the thing, like that there's so much ability in that group.
Yeah.
Like the sky really is kind of the limit for how high they can go. um and I don't want it to feel like it's a core of 4 or 5 of them kind of pushing being pushed really well being pushed at us, and then the others not really getting that same chance to show what they're capable of. A bit of a tangent, but yeah, ultimately Luna's performance showed what they can do. It didn't show what they did do, if that makes sense.
I have the highest expectations of them without a doubt of any group in the
Yeah,
show, which I think factored a lot into me not placing them higher, because I know absolutely how good that could have been. Full health, fully prepared on the same stage as the rest of the groups. I know that could have, like, that performance could have floored me. Like, to,
yeah,
like, so that's what factors a lot into that. And then the audio of it, like we said before, like when Chu's big note happens at the end there, like close to
it
the
wasn't
end.
live. It didn't feel like it was
No,
live,
and
right?
the audio of it is so poorly mixed there that
Yeah,
you don't get like the impact of her doing it. So
yeah, because
those just those
it
things
was
that
like,
missed for
it's like
me.
the track volume was like the same the
Yeah.
whole way. It's like you don't hear her voice coming through on the over the top of it, right? Which is
Mm.
what you want to hear. It just felt like the same track,
Yeah, there was
same
none of the voice fluctuations of a
volume.
live performance that you
Yeah,
would feel normally in that performance from the way it was mixed and stuff. So it was disappointing in
yeah,
that sense for me, which factored a lot into me not remembering it as well as the
yeah.
other performances.
And so I guess the other thing to mention for them is what will come for round two in doing a Hyolin song slash a sister song,
Mm-hmm.
because I have to say that they surely will do sister,
Yeah.
because how it would be in the same way that it would be very difficult. I think it would be very difficult for Hyolin to make doing a full group Luna song
You don't think they're
work.
gonna do Lane Low?
I mean, like,
I'm just.
it's like
I can't
it's
even
the same
imagine.
problem, right?
Yeah.
I thing is, I think they absolutely could do that, because there are members in Luna who I think thrive on that kind of concept. Like Kim Lip and Eve, I think would be all over that kind of thing.
Mm.
Um, but I have to imagine they'll do a sister song, and then it's like, how do you make a four member song fit 12 members fairly? But I think it's, and at the I guess they'll have to pick, maybe they'll probably pick one with less rap focus and then split the vocal parts, I guess. But we'll have to see. I
Yeah,
think there's some
I
cool
feel like
stuff they
it'll
can
be
do.
kind of when there's those like pre-chorus sections of songs where one part connects very smoothly to the next, like that, they'll have to have maybe three members doing like pre-chorus sections separately from each
Yeah,
other or
yeah,
something, because there's 12 of them. That's the only way I can imagine they even start to incorporate all the members.
yeah.
They could, I suppose, do like a dance breakdown that really shows off the dance members more.
I have to imagine that they will incorporate something like that, because Sistar were never known for their dancing. Like, they were known for kind of in the same way that we think of Brave Girls, like strong vocalists with a lot of fun, having fun on stage, and you know, while they undoubtedly were really good dancers and they have some memorable choreography, it's not like it was the craziest, hardest stuff. Whereas Luna are really known for their dance, especially for dance covers, but being like crazy and sick. And I saw in the Paint and Town performance how clean and well executed their choreography is. Like you watch it, that's what I wanted when I was talking about Kepler. Like that's what I want to see on stage is what Luna was doing. Like beautifully flowing, synchronized choreography. It's not, and that doesn't have to mean every member doing the exact same thing at the exact same time, because it can be different parts of the stage. As long as they're all working to the same beat, it looks good.
Yeah.
And I think they would be remiss to not include additional choreography of their own in doing a sister song.
They'll definitely have to, especially because there's 12 of them. And not to mention, I think the Sistar's music has enough upbeat tempo for them to really add something different, like percussion-wise in a breakdown or something, without it taking you out of the song.
Yeah.
Because they're upbeat songs. They're very...
The other option they have, I think, is if they do something kind of similar to what B2B did with Backdoor on Queendom, where they did like a whole elaborate storytelling driven thing with individuals having a lot of time and then culminating in a final group dance performance. Because B2B were faced with a different kind of issue in that B2B was never a dance focused group. And they were there not only having to do a song with twice the amount of members as what they had, but one with notable hard choreography, or not like physically exertive and like strong choreography, which is just not what their strong suit was. So instead, they completely changed the arrangement and completely did a very different.
And Luna can do kind of the opposite, where they could make the choreography more kind of strong and emphasized than Sistars.
But they could break into individuals or units, like 2 or 3, and do a storytelling segment and then come together at the end for a climax. I think that's certainly a way they can do it. But it'd be interesting to see how what song they choose, first of all, because they could, in the end, they could still just do a Hyolin song or something, but I have to imagine they'll pick a sister song.
I'm looking forward to them the most, because you know after what happened and then automatically getting 6 that they're going to want to really show up in this next round. I must say, kind of to conclude things, we were just talking about Queendom, and one of the problems we had with Queendom was kind of how over the top every single performance seemed it had to be, with just like this almost like movie budget cinematic scenario to every performance that happened. One thing I really liked so far about Queendom was, even though I was asking for some of the performances to be a little more grandiose, I don't want that Kingdom level like every single time it's like over the top or something, So Queendom, I feel like, did a really good job at being more about the performance than about the theme around it. Like, whereas Kingdom was very... Every performance I was expecting to have like a James Cameron cinematic opening to it or something,
Yeah, what it wasn't like, oh, how are they going to do this song? It was what kind of
how many backflips are going to happen in this choreography or something.
Definitely. But as an opening round, I think it absolutely did a great job in making me have high expectations for the next round. There's no group that I'm like thinking they're not cut out for this. There's no group I'm not looking forward to seeing. There's no cover that I'm not looking forward to seeing. I can't wait to see what they do, and can't wait for it to be Thursday so I can watch it.
Yeah, I'm excited. I will say right now, before we end, that I'm gonna predict that Luna will be my number 1 in the next round, and Viviz, if they really do something to show themselves, will probably be number 2. I feel like those 2 are the ones who are gonna have the most on their shoulders, to prove going in. So I feel like they're so talented that they will, like I feel like they have to, like, kind of thing.
I'm not gonna be so bold as to try and predict who I might think will do best, but thinking of the groups being like who's covering who and who I want to see covering who most, and like what songs I can imagine them doing and doing well. The two I'm anticipating most are WJSN and Brave Girls. But I have no way of saying who will be my top two.
Well, WJSN has been number one in both episodes for me now, so it's like I'm wondering if they're just gonna go number one across the board the whole time for me or not.
Right.
But I do feel like Luna will definitely shine at some point.
Yeah.
Well, that was it. That was our review of episode 1. Me and Oliver are obviously very excited to see what happens next. I feel like Kepler. I actually am now excited that they are in the show. I am excited to see what they will do next as well. So don't anyone coming in here thinking I have all this hate, saltiness towards Kepler. Okay, well, I gave them third. All right. I gave
speaking of that, as a final note, something I thought was great about the first Queendom is I felt like everyone was very much in it with a really good sense of like everyone is there to enjoy good performances and watch groups do well and groups and Bomb do well. And there wasn't much of an issue of like fighting or fan warring or anything like that. Like there were incidents. It wasn't, I'm not going to act like it was completely squeaky clean and everyone was on their best behavior. Certainly some people more than others were acting up a bit. But like now, especially like initially, I felt like it was primarily coming from Orbits, but now I've seen it coming from Navi/Buddy a lot as well, and Ujongs as well, and Keplians and Bahia at Gaze as well. Just like guys, just stop shading each other. Just enjoy the show. Like, bear in mind that it's Mnet and stuff will be edited to be more dramatic and whatnot. Like, don't overthink things, don't overcomplicate things, just enjoy and try to be objective. And if you think one group did better than the other, it doesn't mean you have to say that the other ones are shit and shouldn't be there and everything like that, or that to respect this, respect that. Everyone respect each other and just enjoy it. Okay.
Think about, before you act, think about how the groups themselves would feel about what you're doing. And how they feel towards each other when you write these things online.
And bear in mind that a lot of the groups do see what you write online.
And you can obviously tell like that Sinbi is friends with WJSN, so I feel like anyone who feels from any of that stuff happening with Sinbi that is actual like villainous behavior or whatever, stop it. Get some help. Yeah.
Thank you, Hyolin Jordan.
Well, that was it. Our episode 1 review of Queendom. I am Honan.
I'm Oliver.